wonderful turnout. Thank you all so much for coming out for what I hope will be an interesting meeting for you. And I want to thank you. Today we're going to focus on a lot of issues, but the main focus is going to be on the planetary crisis regarding climate change. And as all of you know, I disagree with Donald Trump on everything. But on the issue of climate change, this is an issue that goes well beyond the future of Iowa or Vermont or America. It goes to what is going to be happening in the entire world. All right? So the main point that I want to begin with is that when Donald Trump says that climate change is a hoax, he is dangerously, dangerously wrong. Wrong for our country and wrong for the world. And if there is a reality out there, is what the scientists are now telling us, people who have studied this issue for years, is frighteningly, they have underestimated the speed and severity in which climate change is impacting the world. In other words, they said it was a serious problem at a certain period of time, and they said, we're wrong. The crisis is much more severe than we thought. And we are talking about major cities in the United States and in the world being underwater by the end of this century. So I want to just start off before I introduce our wonderful panelists by telling you that we have, in my view, a moral responsibility to make certain that the planet we leave our kids, grandchildren, and future generations is a planet that is healthy and habitable. Anyone who tells you that the scientists are wrong, and who tells you that climate change is not a global emergency is doing a terrible disservice for our country and for the world. So let me just begin by introducing our panelists. They will speak for a while. I'll speak again. We'll open it up to your questions and your comments. So this discussion doesn't have to be limited to climate change. I know there are a lot of other issues on your minds, but we'll probably focus mostly on climate. Our three panelists today are Jennifer Wynn. I see Jennifer has brought her own fan club here.
Yes.
All right. And Matthew Jefferson.
Yes.
And Gary Davis. Jennifer is an environmental activist who suffers from chronic pain that is induced by spinal stenosis. She currently works for Jackson Ewell Tax Preparation Services in social media. Jennifer, take it away.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Wynn. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak on why Senator Sanders' movement towards a more sustainable future for Iowans and our planet means so much to me. Orange City has been spotlighted in recent years for courage and inclusion, and kudos are due to the local OC Pride and Sioux Pride community leaders. I myself come from Haywarden and live just a few blocks away from the Big Sioux River. In rural Sioux County, there are pockets of incredibly wealthy communities as well as smaller dwindling towns, but the issues of our climate and our economy matter greatly to all of us for different reasons. It's no secret that our corner of the state, and Sioux County specifically, are the home to more factory farming operations than any other location in the entire nation. What this means for not only us, but our neighbors locally and globally, is loosely regulated industrial waste continuously and increasingly polluting our air and waterways. I battle social anxiety, and that makes it hard sometimes to participate in all the ways I'd love to with regards to fighting for these causes that matter greatly to me. But I'm trying to face that fear today with you all. And I'm doing that because the threat that these environmental disasters, such as record level flooding that we've seen along the Big Sioux River, or the fact that I can't drink the tap water out of my sink faucet for fear of the alarming level of nitrates. Those things scare me far worse than my social anxieties. Senator Sanders seeks to not only address those fears that I'm sure many of us share, but to also bring new jobs as we seek renewable energy, sustainable farming policies, and good-paying unionized career opportunities. Right. And with Bernie's a record of unwavering courage and integrity in office for decades, he's the only candidate I trust to lead this country.
Thank you, Jennifer. Matthew Jefferson is a geologist and a conservationist. He previously worked on oil rigs in Ohio, Western Pennsylvania, and Western Virginia. Matt, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you, Senator. Good afternoon. My name is Matt Jefferson. I'm honored to be today supporting a candidate that has worked his entire life to lift up the voices of the working class.
Yeah.
I'm a geologist, conservationist, and staunch supporter of the Green New Deal. I studied earth science at the University of South Dakota and received my master's in geoscience at the University of Iowa. Even though I have an advanced degree, I'm currently underemployed, and many times in my life I've found myself unemployed. I was trained to protect the earth, but economic realities forced me to take a job with Weatherford, one of the largest multinational oil and gas companies. I worked on oil rigs where I worked in dangerous conditions, where safety workplace violations were constant. I quickly learned that fossil fuel corporations have no concern for the well-being of employees who risk their lives, no concern for the environment they pollute, no concern for the law. They have only one concern, to maximize profits at our expense. I eventually got a job ensuring public water quality with the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. However, I wasn't an employee. I was a contractor with no access to state benefits, retirement package, or step increases in salary. I made my way back to Iowa in pursuit of a full-time job that allowed me to work in conservation and that would provide me benefits and financial security. However, I found myself underemployed again, trying to make ends meet in an economy choked with gigs but no meaningful jobs. We need to create new jobs, but make sure they are living wage jobs because one job should be enough. Environmental protection jobs should not be a part of the gig economy. They must be union-backed and pay a living wage. I am supporting Senator Sanders because he understands we need a Green New Deal and a green new economy. He is the only candidate that is tying environmental justice and workers' rights. He is the only candidate with the backbone, moral conviction necessary to take on the fossil fuel industry and beat them. Iowans are suffering from the consequences of corporate greed. Our topsoil is eroding, our waters are contaminated, and our air is polluted, all in the name of maximizing profits. Under a Sanders administration, that will end. Please join me in making sure we send Senator Sanders to the White House.
Thank you, Matt. Gary Davis is a retired public employee in Sioux City. He worked as a maintenance engineer for the Sioux City Community School District and was a member of the Operating Engineers Local 234. Gary?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gary Davis. I am an Iowan, longtime resident of Northwest Iowa, and labor union member, and most importantly, I'm a Bernie bro. It is an honor to share the stage with Senator Bernie Sanders. The only candidate I believe will stand up for the working class 10 times out of 10. With Bernie, I don't have to guess. I know where he stands on the issues. That's right. Yes. I worked most of my life in maintenance here in Northwest Iowa, working for the Sioux City Community Schools as a maintenance engineer. I was proudly represented by the Operating Engineer Local 234. As a public sector retiree, I worked hard and paid into the IBERS system. IBERS is the Iowa Public Employee Pension System. I expected it to be there when I retired. Lucky it is. However, the Iowa legislators, supported by private interests, have continually tried to undermine and gut IBERS. Me and the 360,000 other IPER members don't take kindly to corporate-backed legislative attacks on our IPER funds. Not to mention the 11,000 activist IPER members in the Don't Touch My IPER page, Facebook page. I am the administrator of this page and would like to thank the moderators who are helping me. The working class in this country, especially Iowans, have been under attack for too long. Collective bargaining has been and is under attack in Iowa. Unions are under attack in Iowa. Farmers can't make ends meet with tariffs in Iowa. Families struggle to make ends meet in Iowa. Retirees constantly worry about Social Security and their pensions. I'm here today to support the only candidate I trust, the only candidate who has earned my vote, Senator Bernie Sanders. Mike?
Yep.
I want a guy who writes the damn bill to lead the fight to get there. My grandkids deserve to live on a habitable planet, and I want the guy who wrote the biggest and boldest Green New Deal plan to help the fight for 100% renewable energy and jobs. Young people should have the ability to get a college education without being saddled with debt. I want the candidate who's going to cancel all student debt and make college tuition free. These are not difficult things to do. In fact, they are the moral right thing to do. We deserve a government that works for the working class, a government that helps lift up the most vulnerable, not the billionaires and corporate elite. I have worked and lived my entire life in Iowa, and I know how Iowans think. I know what they care about. I know for a fact that if we all support Bernie Sanders, Senator Bernie Sanders, come February 3rd, he will win the Iowa caucus because he's been fighting for people like you and me. He has our back since day one, and we're going to have his back at caucus. Thank you, Senator Sanders. I will see you at the inauguration.
Thank you, Terry. And Matt and Jennifer, thank you all. So I don't know what to say. You all gave my speech already, so it's... All right, let me pick up on some general themes, and we'll get to climate. And I think these guys have touched on most of them. Bottom line here is, what kind of nation do we want to become in the future? And where we are right now, and we don't talk about it in Congress, don't talk about it in the media, but the reality is that in many ways we are moving toward an oligarchic form of society. You don't know what I mean when I say that? And what that means, we have an unprecedented level of income and wealth inequality, which spills over to a corrupt political system. So all of us believe, what most people in America believe is that in a democracy you have one person, one vote. But because we have so much income and wealth inequality, where 3 people in America now own more wealth than the bottom half of our society. You got that? 3 people. More wealth than the bottom half of America. Top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 92%. Over the last 30 years, the top 1% has seen a $21 trillion increase in their wealth. Bottom half has seen a decline in their wealth. Is that the kind of country that we are satisfied with? No. And the answer is that the American people simply wants an economy, a government that works for all of us and not just the wealthy and the powerful. And then to compound the economic crisis, you got a corrupt political system which allows these very same billionaires to either run for office themselves or to put hundreds of millions of dollars into campaigns supporting the wealthy and the powerful. All right, that's not democracy. That is oligarchy. And what this campaign is about, uniquely, is a political revolution. And what that political revolution is about is saying that the time is now for millions of people all across this country to stand up for justice, stand up for economic justice, racial justice, social justice, and environmental justice. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does the progressive agenda mean? These guys all touched on it. For a start, if you work 40 hours a week in the richest country in the history of the world, you should not be living in poverty. Right? I don't think that's a radical idea. 4 years ago when I came to Iowa, I said we got to raise that minimum wage from the starvation wage of $7.25 an hour to a living wage of $15 an hour. 4 years ago, people said, "Hey, Bernie, you're a nice guy, but you're crazy." Well, you know what's happened over those last 4 years? 7 states in America have raised that minimum wage to $15, as has the House of Representatives. Now, $15 an hour ain't gonna get you rich, that's for sure. But at least it is a minimal standard of living. I have talked to people in Iowa. Talked to a woman in Des Moines a couple of weeks ago. Makes $10 an hour, tries to raise 3 kids. Cannot be done. Cannot be done. So we're going to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. What we are also going to do is provide equal pay for equal work for women. And because I am a strong believer that the trade union movement is a key mechanism to provide decent wages and benefits for workers, we're going to make it easier for workers to join unions, not harder. Now, what this campaign is about, it asks a lot of people. Because we go outside the normal political boundaries. We ask you to think big, not small, to have a vision of America which is not reflected in the media, not reflected in Congress, not reflected in the words of most politicians. You know, I hear a lot of folks talk about, politicians talk about how much they love America. That's great. Well, if you love America, you love the children in America. And I want you to think for a moment. I want you to think outside of the box. In the richest country in the history of the world, where we've seen a proliferation of billionaires, how are we doing with our kids? Any thoughts? We doing well by our kids? No, we're not. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. We have a child care and pre-K system which is utterly dysfunctional. Every psychologist who has studied the issue understands that 0 through 4 are the most important years of development in terms of intellectual and emotional growth. Everybody understands that. And yet we force working families in Iowa, Vermont, all over this country to go to work and leave their kids in inadequate child care facilities which are too expensive because we're not investing in our children. All right, I want every working person in this country, when they go to work with confidence that their kids are getting the best quality early childhood education available any place in the world. So we're going to fight and implement universal, high-quality, affordable child care. And I want the workers who work in child care not to make McDonald's wages, but to make the wages that are commensurate with the important work that they do. about public education and they're all over this country. We're seeing teachers have to work 2 or 3 jobs. We're seeing teachers take money out of their own pockets to buy the school supplies their kids need. We're seeing programs in the arts, in languages being cut back. That is not the way you treat the children in a highly competitive global economy. So we are going to invest in education, especially in Title I schools, where kids there are primarily low income and working class. And we are going to reach the day when every teacher in this country earns at least $60,000 a year and gets the respect that they are due. There is no more important work than a teacher. All right? And we got to give those people, I want the best and the brightest young people to say with pride, I'm going to be a teacher because it's a great job. I'm impacting thousands of people, young kids' lives. Nothing more important than that. And then as you heard, what we are also going to do is say to every person in this country, not just young people, that if you have a dream that requires a higher education, you have the right to get that education regardless of the income of your family. 4 years ago, I came to Iowa, talked about making public colleges and universities tuition free. Once again, oh, Bernie, you're a nice guy, but that's too radical, never happened. All over the country, that is exactly what is happening right now. A couple of months ago in New Mexico.